she answered, trying to sound surprised, even hurt that he would have to ask, masking her underlying frustration. Finally, he looked her in the eye. "I have work to do too," he trailed off. She pounced. "I'll owe you. I swear, whatever you want, I'll prep your next functional analysis. This is so important to me. The administrator would never understand as it was due to him yesterday." "Okay, enough." His response implied that she had carried on like a whining child for hours, which, of course, she had not. "Just remember your promise." The tables had turned so fast that Carla was caught unprepared. She immediately knew that she'd offered too much. Jeff's next functional analysis would probably take weeks. However, there was no going back. She would have to cross that bridge when she got to it. Plucking the replicate neuron tube from its place in her computone, Carla scurried across the room to Jeff's workspace, just as he rose and stepped aside. Plunging the tube in, she began banging keys to start up the reset sequence without looking up. She vaguely heard Jeff slip out of the office. In her imagination, she thought that he was probably off to sit in the park or relax in some other way. Not that she could easily picture him having fun. He was, from everything that she could gather, a rather boring and uninspired man who was old enough to have already moved up to a mid-level staff position. He had gotten the best of her. So what? It didn't really matter. The important thing was getting the synthesis done in time to file a progress report as soon as possible. The administrator, a guy named Cartlands, had been impatient with her about this project from the start. He had bugged her twice before she even got started, until she finally took the not-so-subtle hint that he wanted it done immediately. After days of avoiding him, just as she was nearing completion, this bad luck had cost her valuable time. Jean. When Jean was a child, her pop liked to arrange family outings to places near town. Jean had outgrown these family excursions, but still felt a little nostalgia for them. Although the places they visited ranged from the lake to the dunes to the big sandstone formation that was called the Arches, Jean's favorite was the canyon. The stream in the canyon could be dry, or there could be a steady flow of water over its dusty, sandy bed. The stream bed was surrounded by a dense line of cottonwood, salt cedar, and Russian olive trees. Their alternating colors of bright green, dark green, and drab green formed a base for the steep, red canyon walls. The stone of the walls stretched upwards for as much as 1,000 feet to the rim. While mostly red, the sandstone was streaked with black and white, which swirled about in fanciful patterns. The family used to ride out to a point where a trail leading down from the rim. They would unload water bottles and a lunch bag and spend the morning hiking to the bottom. It was about 4 kilometers down through a series of sharp switchbacks that cut along sheer cliff. At the bottom, built high into the cliff face, there were ruins of old metal and brick structures that Dad said had been occupied by another species that inhabited Simpac 3 long before humans arrived to find it devoid of life. At that time, the canyon was not so deep, and the inhabitants lived on the bottom rather than seeming to be suspended halfway up the stone wall. Jean would play in the sand or stream, depending on the season. Then they would eat their lunch and lie in the sun or shade, again depending on the season. When they had enough, or the sun was low in the sky, they would start the long hike back up. It was a steep walk, and Pop huffed and puffed to show just how hard it was for him. Jean would roll her eyes, because she didn't believe him. Although it meant the end of the day, she always cherished the return. There was something so sweet and rare in the late afternoon air that she could almost taste it on her tongue. She remembered stopping and looking back at the shadows as they lengthened across the canyon, feeling a sense of belonging and purpose in the mild chill of the cooling air. Then, in her mind's eye, she could remember taking Pop's hand and pulling him along the next switchback.